Welcome back to Preparing for Online Delivery. In this video, we will be introducing you to the assessment tools inside of Blackboard.
Thank you, Bree. Oh, let's get into Blackboard. Assessment, hey? Let's say, okay, I'm going to mute my camera once again and share my screen. Assessment in Blackboard. I'm going to get into a content area. And I know I'm in a content area by looking at this gray menu bar, and I can see build content and assessments. So assessing in Blackboard. Um, I like Blackboard for this, and this is the management part of that learning management system. Um, when Blackboard manages your assignments and your tests, it automatically creates a column in Grade Center for you, and it just it manages those submissions in one spot. You know, back in the day when students were emailing things or giving you hard copies, it can be too many points of entry for submitting material. But Blackboard is a nice central place that timestamps things, everything's logged, and we know what's going on when students are doing assessments in Blackboard. So first of all, I want to talk about the assignment Dropbox, and it's quite simple to make an assignment Dropbox. You hover over assessment, you come down to assignment, give the assignment a name. You can give it a rich description and instructions here. You can attach files that will help students do the assignment. So maybe it's an assignment template or something that you want them to fill in and resubmit back. I can come down here and I can actually, it's another area for me to attach files. I can either use the paperclip here or attach things here. I can put in due dates. Know that a due date is only informational. It doesn't stop them from submitting. What stops them from submitting is down here to submission details here. But before we get there, I want to talk about the points possible. The two things you're obligated to do when making an assignment Dropbox is to give it a name and give it the points possible. And once again, the points possible is not the weighting. If this assignment is worth 30% of the mark, the points don't necessarily have to be 30. Maybe I'm using a rubric to grade that assignment that only has a maximum of 20 points. So the points possible here would be 20. So please understand that this is not where you put the weighting. The weighting goes into the weighted total column in another area in Grade Center, and we have many tutorials that outlines that. If you are lost with those tutorials, please always contact the ADC Sandbox for help. We always say if you spend more than 20 minutes trying to figure something out with the tutorials, it's time to call. But there are resources available to you online if you're out of office hours. I can add a rubric here. I can talk about a rubric in a little later, but Blackboard has the ability to add rubrics, and then you can create rubrics. And I must say, I am a fan of rubrics. I know some people aren't. But this rubric feature is nice, and if you make a really good quality rubric and you are assessing students, it's just a matter of just kind of clicking on the square of the rubric, and Blackboard's automatically totaling that for you, and then boom, the student gets a mark and understands where on the rubric they scored. But I'll talk a little bit more of that later. Submission details. So is this an individual submission or is this a group submission? In a previous video, we talked about creating groups. Know that your groups have to be made first before you make a group submission assignment Dropbox. And understand that when you do make a group assignment, that it just matters on who in the group is submitting the assignment. So Blackboard knows the group and the group membership. So if I'm part of group A and I submit on behalf of my group, then the John cell in the grade center will be open to receive a grade, and all my other group members are going to be grayed out, so you cannot enter any grade in there. And so you would give me my submission the group mark, and that mark would trickle to all my group members. Now, we all know that sometimes we need to adjust group marks because either someone's working extra or someone's not working hard enough. Once you give me that original grade, that grade will now populate to my group members. And if I need to edit that grade, now I can go to that group member, click in the cell where the grade is, and edit the grade accordingly. So just know that when you do a group submission, you need your groups built first. How the grade center looks after a group member submits will look a little different because suddenly you can't enter grades into everybody's cell until you enter that initial one for the person who submitted on behalf of the group. We also have plagiarism tools, so text matching software. We do use SafeAssign at Mount Royal. know that this product comes with policy, and so you must be aware of the policy before you implement this. So please review that policy. You will find a tutorial around using SafeAssign on the Blackboard on Demand site. So please see that tutorial, see the policy, and understand it before you turn this on. You cannot just turn this tool on because you want to. You need to follow policy, and I will leave it there and really ingrain that there is a policy, and I'll say that one more time. So please be aware of that policy. And maybe while we're talking about SafeAssign, since I'm here, if you are using the tool according to the policy and you've rolled it out, just know that this isn't like a computer gotcha. You need to be a human being and go in there and actually look at the results. All this tool does is say, I need a human here to look at this. There's too many things going on here. Please look at this. It is not that report return is not a guilty verdict by any means. So please understand the tool and take understand that you still need a human to go in there and check this thing, and we need to use all those good things that we've done before. These plagiarism tools existed, all those good strategies we use as teachers to sort out plagiarism. Bit of a tangent there, but important information. So remind you, we're building an assignment Dropbox. It could be for individuals, it could be for groups. It just needs a name and points possible. You can add a rubric to it. Also, I can make this this assignment Dropbox available immediately, or I can actually have it open and close at certain dates and times. So once again, what's nice about technology and working in this remote time is that I could build out my course in advance and have Blackboard manage the opening and closing of these different assignment Dropbox. So I could do a lot of work at the front end to be highly efficient and kind of hands-off with certain matters when I'm actually in the course. So be aware of that. You can even track number of views and get some statistics here as well for the assignment Dropbox. And even when you do items, you can still track like views of that too. So if you did make a wonderful resource, you can see if students are actually using it or not. Yeah, so that's basically the assignment portion. So you can manage submissions from students. Some people will even use this as a test function in terms of I want you to write a paper for this exam and send it back to me. And rather than doing it in the test area of Blackboard, you can just leverage the assignment Dropbox for that same purpose.
John, just a reminder from something we talked about in a previous video. It's with the assignment Dropbox, it's nice to put in a little prompt to kind of say submit here, and just some cues around how students are supposed to interact with that assignment Dropbox. Sometimes they get a bit confused because there may be instructions for the assignment there, and then it's also the same spot where they would submit their assignment. And again, a reminder that video tutorial is there to show students exactly how they can submit an assignment. So I know these were mentioned in a previous video, but just a quick little reminder about those things.
Right, thank you for that, Patty, because not everybody really pays attention to these icons, and even I forget what these icons mean from time to time. So it is really nice to put in brackets, you know, submit your assignment here, click on the link, click here to submit the assignment, just so students are reminded of, you know, this is the Dropbox. So thank you for that, Patty.
John, also to reinforce that these assignment Dropbox are great tools that we can use to again leverage the tools we have in Blackboard and to avoid confusion on students. So refrain from asking students to send you information via email or other methods. Try to use that as much as possible.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for that, Luciano. It's a great reminder, because if you do have multiple ways of submitting, things can get messy quickly, and that's one thing I like about this feature. It's just one-stop shopping. All right, so that's the assignment piece. Let's get into tests and quizzes. Now, we have a whole virtual workshop on this in the Blackboard on Demand site. So I'm just going to touch on this once again, just to, you know, just things that are top of mind around these tools. So test surveys and pools. So under your course tools area, you can come into test surveys and pools. Blackboard is kind of nice. I can come into this area here to build my tests. So I always like to think of this area as kind of my workbench where I'm creating tests. And then I can go to a content area, hover over assessment test, and I can see the tests I've already built in my work area, or I can create one on the fly. So Blackboard allows me to create a test on the fly in a content area, or access one that I've built back in my workshop, that workshop area as I like to call it. And you get to that once again through course tools, test surveys and pools, and tests. I just want you to know that when you do build a test, you'll come and click on build a test. And on this page here, you're just giving the test information. So maybe it's midterm 1, description of what midterm 1 is, some instructions for midterm 1, and then you hit submit. Often people just get frozen here and they think, well, where do I make the questions? And it's because you haven't hit submit yet. Once you hit submit, you'll get taken to the actual test canvas, which now I'm in the area where I get to create questions and build the test. Know that, we're not going to go into the details here, know that if you've had previous tests in Word documents, there is a way to reformat that Word document and to get and to upload it to a website and get a file that will automatically convert it to a Blackboard test for you. And just know that that is possible. So really, when I'm in here, it is a bit arduous creating a Blackboard test question by question, but you come to your create a question, you have many question types, you select the question that works for you. If you have other tests, you can reuse questions as well, and you can upload questions, and this is how you would get, when I was referring to that Word document that's reformatted, and taken to a website and published again in a Blackboard format and uploaded. This is where that would happen, but there are videos that show you that. But that is just how you build one test. And really, I think when we're worried about academic integrity at these times, a way we can add rigor to a test is actually by leveraging the pool feature more. So maybe, we've been teaching a course for many years and I have all these midterms piled up that I don't use anymore. And maybe the content, obviously content changes year to year, but maybe some of that is pretty static type content, some of the fundamentals to your discipline that just never change. What you can do is go back to those exams and build pools. And I'm not going to show you how to build pools, but just know that you're able to make a question pool, a robust question pool in Blackboard. And so this is how you could boost academic integrity within your exam writing by essentially, if I have a huge pool of questions, so maybe, I was fortunate enough to have 8 old midterms sitting around, and I put them into Blackboard, and now I have a question pool of 200 questions, and I'm going to have a midterm of 50 multiple choice questions. I can just point my test to that pool and do a random question block and point that block to my pool of 200 questions and just saying pull 50 at random, and essentially every student is getting a different test. If you think you can even break down the pool into certain topics, so you make sure that not all the questions are being pulled from chapter 1. You can do different pools that are more granular, and then in that way you can also make sure that there is more of more randomness to your question pool than just maybe end up 50 questions all from chapter 1. That's not really good, right? So just know that the pools exist. It's one method of building in a bit more of integrity into your testing, and it's a nice feature. Also know that if you do want to make quizzes, you would still use this test function, and if you want to point to pools, go ahead. Maybe you're using publisher resources and they're providing you with question sets, and they're Blackboard compliant, you can upload those in as well. So there's a lot of ways you can engage making a test, but you can have tests in Blackboard. And I do want to actually talk to you about setting the test options, because that would be the next key feature here. So I'm just going to deploy a test really quick here for you and get to those test options. So so this is me going to the workbench, and because I've already created the test and the name and the canvas, I can just go right to the test options. That would be the third step. And so how do you want this test to be distributed? You want to make the test available to students if it's time to write. You can, if you want, add a new announcement for the test. You can allow attempts for this test. So multiple attempts, allow them to submit more than once, or number of attempts. Actually, if you just fill out nothing, it'll be one attempt. And basically, once they click on that link and use it, the link will be dead after that. If you want to, maybe it's a formative assessment, you can allow unlimited attempts, take the quiz as many as you want. It's not really counting for marks, it's just, you know, for you to help practice. Or you can say, you know, I'm going to give you 2-3 attempts. Typically in a test, you have one crack at a test. The other option you have here is forced completion. We're not recommending you use forced completion at this time, because what this does is if the students have any sort of interruption with their Wi-Fi or anything during the test, this will kick them out, and if it's a single attempt, they will be out forever until you reset it. So that would require action on your part. But going back to this integrity piece, what you can do is set the timer, and the timer here, if the students have more time to get back into the test, they can always come back to it, or forced completion would lock them out. So you can set a timer and pick a time where you can say, well, you know, realistically, if they knew this and really knew it, it would take this long to answer the question. So think about all those times and add them together, and maybe that's what you make for your test time. This is how much time they have to write. You can turn an auto submit on, so once they run out of time, their test is automatically submitted. Or what you can do is leave it off, and then if they run out of time and go into extra time, they're just flagged as being late. Blackboard will tell you how much more time they took to do that test. The other thing is maybe I want my test to be released at a certain date and time. So I'd use these options down here. And what's critical about this is that you must have these boxes checked off. You must make sure your dates are applied, and you must make sure that you made it available. Because what happens is, it's kind of like a list of rules here of priority. If this is no, this is no. It's a hard no. It means nothing else matters. This is not going to be available, even if you set this date and time release. What you do need to say, yes, this is available, yes, under, this is how Blackboard would read it, under these conditions. So you do have to make it available. You do have to do your time release if you want a time release. And know that, say my test is from 1 to 2 o'clock, if I put 1 to 2 o'clock here for that test link, I can come in here at 1:59 and log in and still get my full time for the test. These are separate entities. This is the test time. This is the link availability time. So maybe maybe you want your students only to start writing, they have 15 minutes, like your test is at 11, you need to be clicked log into Blackboard by 11:15, or however, you know, just like kind of like those normal gym rules. If you're 20 minutes late, you don't get to write, things like that. So that is available to you. You make your rules, you can decide how to do it. The password's not really important. This would be used in a lab setting if the students were right in front of you. And the other part is I can add exceptions, so maybe someone needs extra time. Note that when I add exceptions, there's a bug in Blackboard. If I add any exception, even though my test is unavailable, it looks like it is available. It's not grayed out, it's all lit up. So just know that that's a bug in Blackboard, that when you do add an exception, it shows you like that link is alive, but you know that you've either made it unavailable or it's available under some time restriction. If you know those are active and running right, don't worry about seeing that false positive that you're getting from Blackboard. Due dates, once again, is purely informational. It doesn't stop anybody from doing anything. The other piece around your test options is the feedback students get. It's great if you just uncheck everything. That kind of gives them one little quick view of what they got, and then if it's being auto-graded, and then until you release, this just allows you how you want things released, and you really, we find with more and more feedback that if you don't want students to be able to share these tests again with somebody else, you just want to uncheck everything, and then maybe go over the test as a group or one-to-one with students. But just know that you do have the ability to let the students see the score per question, so they know question 1 they got a point, question 2 they didn't. You can get it so they can get all the answers to the test after a certain criteria is met. So it could be after submission, a one-time view, a due date, many options there. You can show them the ones they got correct, and the answer they submitted. Also, if you added feedback into some automated feedback into the test, that would be revealed as well. And then you have the option of showing incorrect questions. Just for the, what's the $10 word for it, but just for the integrity of the exam, it's almost nice to not have anything. And just know that multiple choice and questions with defined answers are auto-graded, but as soon as you put in a written response, that needs to be human graded, and students will get no feedback until that written response is marked by you. Lastly, to kind of bring a little more rigor to the test, how the test is presented all at once. So they see all the questions all at once, or are they going to see a question one at a time? We all know the classic strategy of hey, I'm on question 50, and I remember the answer to this was back in question 13, so I can go back to question 13, reuse that question to answer my question 50. So maybe you want one at a time. Prohibit backtracking, so you can't actually go back and use another question to answer a future question. And then you also, again, have this idea of randomizing the questions. So this would be separate from the randomization, which is happening in pools. This would be if I just had 50 set questions, I'm not pulling from a pool, those 50 questions would be randomized. So all the students are getting the same 50 questions, just in a different order. So just understand that that's what that option makes there. And that's basically it for quizzes, test options, and making tests in Blackboard. This is by no means the tutorial on doing that, but just letting you know that that here's how you can bring in some academic integrity ideas into a testing situation, and how to assess. Any comments about tests and pools and quizzes from my panelists?
Thanks, John. I think one of the key aspects is, again, it's good to know how these tools are useful and available to us, but also an encouragement for us to think in terms of alternative modes of assessment. And we're going to be going to more detail in other videos, but just to flag here that this is not the single option you have available to assess your students' learning. There are other strategies that you can use that don't rely on synchronous assessment options. So just to flag that.
Absolutely, and thank you for that. Yes, we're just talking about some Blackboard features here. We have many other tools in our toolkit beyond what Blackboard offers us. So thank you for that reminder, Luciano. And I did promise earlier in this video that we would talk briefly about Rubrics. So Rubrics lives under your course tools, and real quick, just what Rubrics look like. I come into the rubric area. I can import a rubric if maybe a colleague had one in their course. They can export it out and give me the file, and I can import it here, or I can just create my own. And just let me kind of just give you a real quick overview. I can give the rubric a name, so maybe it's my writing rubric. I can scroll down here, and here's my criteria for my rubric, and here's my levels of achievement. The rubric type, I can have no points, a point range, a percent, or a percent range. And once I define all that, I hit submit, and now I have this rubric that's good to go. And then if you recall back in the assignment drop box, there was a place to say add rubric. If I click there, it would show me this rubric I constructed, or it would give me the option to create one on the fly. So, but say that now that the students have actually submitted their items, and where you go for your submitted items is to the grade center. There's two areas you can do: needs grading or full grade center. I always like to go in the full grade center. And then you'll notice these little exclamation icons in the cells of your students, and that means that their submissions are waiting for you. And the verbiage in Blackboard, it's called an attempt. So you would view the attempt, you grade the attempt. So their submission is always called an attempt. But when I go to grade, I can actually bring up this rubric. You'll see a little link there when you're grading the assignment to, rubric. You click on it, and then your rubric opens up. And basically, all you're doing is you're clicking on the square, and Blackboard is totaling the grade, and it kind of automates and quicks. Well, it's semi-automated because you're still doing the clicking, but it just makes the process a little quicker. And depending on the quality of your rubric, we always hope for good quality rubrics because that's meaningful. Then students have a great the thing I love about rubrics is the transparency behind it. Students know exactly how they're going to be graded. They know the expectation, and if there's an issue with the grade, you have a conversation piece to start with. You can go through the criteria. So so Blackboard can allow you to do this digitally. And I'm just going to leave that there. Just know that and you can follow up with the sandbox or online tutorials if you want to know more about rubrics. But basically, that's assessment in Blackboard. So I hope you found that video informative. Like I say, these videos are just to complement the pod site. These are not workshops around these things. So if the pod site resource is getting fuzzy for you, reach out for a consultation. Or if the Blackboard piece is getting a little fuzzy, please reach out to the sandbox. Other than that, thank you for watching this video.
This concludes the video on organizing your site in Blackboard. We hope you found it useful. And of course, thanks again to John, Patty, and Luciano. Make sure to check out the third and final series of videos where we cover ways to teach in an online environment. Bye for now.